Hello and welcome to Reiki Women Podcast. It's me, Bronwen from Reiki with Bronwen, and I have my two esteemed colleagues with me again today. And there is Carrie Varela, and Carrie is from the Reiki Healing Society, and there's Michaela Daystar from Heartscapes. Lovely to see everyone, and let's get into it. We have a question for today, and it is, can you have a Reiki treatment at the same time as having cancer and undergoing things like chemotherapy and radiation? It's a good question because, doctors often say you can't do anything, you've just got to do this, or, whatever the situation is. So what do you guys think? Who'd like to go first? Go, Carrie.
Well, I have had clients with cancer, and I think it's an incredible medicine for somebody going through such an intense healing crisis. Um, and so I felt like I've worked with people in a couple different capacities. I haven't had a ton of clients with cancer, and I think understandably it's because there is so much cost and time and therapies and things going on for most cancer patients. So Reiki can be one part of maybe many things that they're doing for themselves, but usually having cancer is like kind of a full-time job. So I get that. And then also the cost, so I always try to make my services pretty accessible to people who are dealing with something like cancer. Um, and one of the things that I really liked doing with the clients that I've had an opportunity to work with is to work with them after they've had chemotherapy sessions. And I think that that's been really helpful because I feel that the Reiki energy helps kind of direct that medicine and the chemotherapy like really deeply, intelligently into those cancer cells. And for the, clients that I've had with cancer that they've had positive benefit from that. I also think, beyond the physical level of healing, there's so much going on mentally and emotionally for somebody going through a cancer crisis. And so Reiki can be incredibly helpful for them to just find that clarity, that peace of mind, inner strength, maybe work through some fear that they're feeling or experiencing, some emotions. I've known some of my clients who've had cancer just really wanted to focus on like emotional clearing and just clearing of feeling like all the feels, that emotional overwhelm that just can be so trying, when your health is uncertain. So those are some of the things, the benefits I think that Reiki has had for cancer. And I think there is a question there, right? It's like, why would you want to give energy work to, a malignant entity in the body? And I really don't, I have full faith that Reiki will do no harm in those situations, won't like grow the cancer bigger or anything like that or feed the cancer. I don't, that's just not my opinion of what's happening.
I think that's a good question. Yeah, that's probably a good underlying question. And just to quickly, I think that comes from how we see it. And just what you were saying before, that, that Reiki affects the cancer. I wouldn't even say that, because really what Reiki is, I think, just word wise, I think if we see it that Reiki is, we are Reiki. It's not something separate from us. So if we're always seeing it as something separate, then we have these dualistic issues coming up, right? But if we understand that we are Reiki, then really what we're doing when we have a Reiki treatment is really just supporting ourselves. So it's supporting ourselves to work with whatever is happening within us, whether that's cancer or Parkinson's or whatever might be happening in our bodies. We are supporting our bodies to find its way back into a state of wholeness, which we're always trying to do. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think, kind of blending the two responses. What comes up for me when I hear this question, because it's a question that I see repeated in various Reiki spaces in different forms. not often, but like enough to have paid attention, which is why we wanted to address it here. And what always comes up for me is what concern or perspective is represented by that question. Like, why wouldn't we, like, why would we be concerned about sharing Reiki with somebody who's undergoing cancer? And the two things that I've seen specifically tied to that question, there's probably others, different people who ask it have different motivations, but the two that I've seen show up is, on the one hand, a concern or a fear on the part of the practitioner around interacting with something that is perceived as being so toxic as a cancer, and even as toxic as the chemotherapies. Like, do we want to put our energy, exposed to that cancer? So that's one concern that I've seen expressed. And then kind of almost on the opposite side of that is a concern on behalf of the recipient, the patient, around the presence of the chemotherapy in their system. Because, one of the things that's so awful about cancer is that so many of the treatments, including chemotherapy, are themselves very injurious and toxic, right? You're putting a poisonous substance in the system to kill the cancer that then itself has its own impacts on our system. It's part of why it's such a challenging disease. And so there's a concern of the Reiki almost like eliminating the chemotherapy, eliminating the medicine before it can do its job. Those are the two concerns that I've seen explicitly expressed by people who ask that question. And I think that both of those concerns are addressed by, Bronwen, what you're talking about, that if, what are we understanding Reiki to be? If we understand Reiki to be, energy outside of ourself that kind of sweeps through our system and like connects us to another person and like opens up our field to receiving, whatever they have going on, then you can see that first concern being present. If we see it as something that's going to kind of unilaterally go in and clean out anything that's in there, then we can see the second concern. But if we see Reiki as an expression of our truest, wholest self, then neither of those concerns are really need to be concerns. That we are not going to take on any part of the person's cancer or the toxins of their treatment. We're simply being present with them in the fullness of our true self as much as we can be in that moment. We're creating a container where their system can be fully supported in doing the balancing work that their system is already doing to support their healing. And we're supporting them, perhaps most importantly, around the fear and the anger that is often present when we're undergoing, risky, long-term, very difficult medical treatments. That we're addressing, or we're creating space around that fear, giving space for that fear to pass through, to express itself and then move on, which then has this cascade of healing benefit inside of their system. And we're giving their system support, or we're holding a container where their system is supported to make the best use of the medicine that's coming in from the treatments that they're receiving, and to let go of what it doesn't need. And so, again, those mechanisms are inside of each of us. We're not like commingling our energies. We're not exchanging toxins with them. It's both of us coming into as much of our fullness and rooted, spacious, connected selves as we can, which creates the condition for healing to occur. And that healing is already present inside of that patient, and we're simply being with them in that. And so in that context, we don't have to be concerned about those two concerns. And we can see the just many layers of benefit that a person experiences when they combine Reiki with allopathic medical treatments for something like cancer. And Carrie, you spoke to some of those really beautifully. And again, the gaining freedom from fear being a huge one, and the kind of spacious container for their system to take up healing, which brings more relaxation, which brings just more ease to their system, all of which has a cascade of healing effects. So yeah, so that kind of is what always comes up for me when I see that question is, what is it that you're concerned about when you ask that question? And then can we explore, our understanding of Reiki in ways that help to soothe those concerns?
Yeah, and when you talk about fear, to me, that, it's immediately bringing up the precepts, which we always talk about, so coming back to the precepts, finding, realizing that we are these mental beings, and that if we can come into that mental space of balance, then we will be able to see clearly and understand how we can best help ourselves, I think. I know that any research, I don't know if you guys have looked into any research, but over the years, research into the system of Reiki and cancer, that they've often, because it's not like taking a pill, right? And we talked about that when we talked about placebos and all of that. That the markers that they tend to use for cancer would be something like well-being, which I think, so how we're feeling. And the research for that has been very positive as far as the system of Reiki is concerned. So, and I think that's when we talk about well-being, we're talking about wholeness, we're talking about the precepts, and really, how we, I mean, what do we really want? Yeah, okay, we don't want to be sick, yeah, but through whatever we have to go through, because we all have to go through things in life, whether it's, a breakup, or whether it's cancer, or, life is not just one flat line. So all the things that we go through in life, whether they're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, we are going to have to deal with them. And that's where I think the system of Reiki is always there, because if we use that marker of well-being, it's not saying that we don't have those things in our life, don't have to have those things in our life, but that we can move through life feeling balanced and well, have a good sense of well-being as we move through. Yeah.
Well said.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I think also one other topic, if I just throw it out there, I'd love to maybe, well, I know this one will be a shorter episode, but I think it's also really important, to point practitioners to Michaela's amazing work around trauma-informed care and trauma-informed Reiki, because um, I think that there is a potential for a Reiki practitioner potentially to do a lot of harm, because somebody who's going through cancer is, like we've talked about, is incredibly vulnerable. And, finding the right words, the things that are actually truly nourishing and consoling during those moments, it's important to be very mindful, I think, of the words that we use and how we support cancer patients verbally and in different ways, and also just emotionally for the practitioner. So if you're also, fear is a contracting thing, right? And if somebody told me I'm going to die in 3 months, I would probably contract very deep inside of myself, and it would take me on a journey. And ultimately, I think that what you guys are sharing and what I agree with is that Reiki helps us open ourselves even in that state of fear, and helps us move energy of fear, ungroundedness, worry out of our system, right? And can support us, and even on those really deep healing levels, because Reiki is who we are, right? And so we're connecting to that essence, that healing essence that we are, the life force that we are. And so Reiki can be incredibly useful, but I do think I know that for myself, working with cancer patients is always a time for me to really sit with my own fear of death, my own, whatever my anxiety that might arise for them, my anxiety that might arise for them, and just do whatever I can to not impart that to them, or put that on them. And just being really mindful of what I'm saying, that it actually really supports them where they're at.
I think that's really important. So we sort of see the question. That's beautiful. Thank you, you guys. We've seen it from both perspectives. We've seen it from the client perspective, but also from the Reiki practitioner perspective, who needs to think about how they're doing it and what they're doing. And so our wishes for you, our wellness and well-being. And if you have any questions, make sure you do ask us. If you've got any thoughts about this subject, if you have experiences of this subject, we'd love to hear about it. So please pop that in the comments below, and do subscribe if you'd like to hear some more thoughts about the system of Reiki, and you know, sort of follow all those sorts of lovely things. So we'll be seeing you again soon, and thanks for joining us today. Bye for now.